This episode of Bullet Heaven was made possible with a copy of the game provided by two tribes.
Let's deal with those asteroids in style. Put on some classic game music. And do this.
Since episode 189, we've been taking a look at several shooters on the Nintendo Switch to see release in just the last few weeks. We've officially started calling it Shmuppy Switchmas. Xenoraid was choice, Dimension Drive was solid but flawed, and Aces of the Luftwaffe Squadron was pretty iffy but ended up growing on us quite a bit. Now it's time for something totally different. Originally in development for the Wii U, but ultimately scrapped and ported to other platforms, RIVE Ultimate Edition for the Nintendo Switch was released on November 17th, 2017 by Dutch developer Two Tribes. It's a complicated shooter to define. Predominantly though, RIVE is a Shmuproidvania twin-stick run-and-gun platformer, so kind of a bit of everything. But man, does this one pack a punch. Let's take a closer look. The gameplay in RIVE is extremely dynamic, but on the whole, here's how it controls. Players control Roughshot Spider Tank with the left analog stick while firing with the right one. When in zero gravity, the Spider Tank can be piloted in any direction, but when on a surface, typical 2D movement controls apply. The main gun almost always functions in 360 degrees, with only a few exceptions. Jumping is handled by way of the ZL trigger. Players also have immediate access to a double jump function to cross larger gaps and reach higher ledges. Both jumps can also be activated after vaulting into the air in some instances, which can be helpful in making speedy progress. As the game progresses and enemies are dispatched, it will drop pieces of scrap called loot that can be collected and used in purchasing various abilities in the game's main hub. New weapons, enhanced armor, and other features can be unlocked in this manner to make things just a little easier for the player as they make their way through the game's rather lengthy campaign. Special weapons can be selected by way of their respective face buttons, A, B, X, and Y, and fired with the ZR trigger. Only one special weapon can be held at a time, which we'll get into soon. Players also have a special hacking beam that is used to interact with various bits of machinery to open doors, shutters, barriers, and so forth. Hitting the R button will change the screen to a kind of night vision style mode, and the beam will become visible when aimed with the right analog stick. As interactions take place with this beam, the game will slow down as data is transferred. This beam has another more important function though. As the game progresses, Roughshot will obtain a number of hacks that, by way of the hacking beam, allows players to take control of various automatons within the confines of the mysterious derelict vessel the player is blasting their way through. Some will offer additional firepower, others will heal the player, and some even activate bullet trains. On the whole though, these hacks are incredibly useful and often required to progress in RIVE in true Metroidvania style. The player will also encounter a couple of other pickups as well. Weapon crates replenish the Spider Tank's special weapon, which, again, can only be stored one at a time. Thankfully, a number of these will be randomly dropped as the enemy defeats more and more enemies, often while using the special weapon. This will also occur during most boss fights as well, giving players a good amount of firepower at all times. Players will also find white health orbs that will replenish a good amount of health when obtained. It can be pretty easy to get heavily damaged in RIVE, and these health pickups are almost always a relief to see. RIVE can get pretty crowded and getting hit will happen often, but that's okay because the Spider Tank has a hefty life gauge. If a player ends up biting it though, they'll continue at the last checkpoint they made it to. The action is extremely satisfying in RIVE on the whole. The controls are just right. There's never really a time that the player feels out of control of Roughshot's Spider Tank, and the amount of destruction that the player can wreak is quite a bit more than satisfying. It certainly doesn't hurt that RIVE travels along at a brisk 60 frames per second at all times, even during heavy, crowded segments. Word is, RIVE on Nintendo Switch is the fastest, most stable version ever to see the release, and we're inclined to believe that. The whole campaign has its fair share of challenging moments as well. Intense combat, tense sequences requiring split-second reflexes, and more than a few mysteries will face the player as they make their way through the game. The challenge presented here is one of the most balanced we've played. Anyone can jump in and have a good time with RIVE. When it's all said and done, the controls in RIVE are pitch perfect. Even using the Joy-Con, a player never feels as if they're not 100% in control at any given time, which is critical to some of the more intense segments in the game. Basically, if the player dies, it's all on them. Players can take quite a while the first time through, but players can continue at death and even resume from various checkpoints in the interest of progress. But for those looking for more challenge, a hard difficulty exists, as well as a speedrun mode, in which the player tries to complete the game in as fast a time as possible, and even a one-credit mode where the player takes on RIVE without saves or continues. In addition, an exclusive mode to the Nintendo Switch version is present in the form of Co-Pilot mode. Activated at any time in the pause menu by pressing X, the controls are split between separate players. One player moves while the other shoots. This asymmetrical co-op sure is an intriguing way to take on the game, and you'll only find it in this version. Super cool. But it doesn't even end there. A series of daily challenge stages, single mission select, boss battle arenas, and more are available for players that want to take their RIVE skills to the next level. And believe it or not, there's even more replay to be had with RIVE. The scoring in RIVE doesn't exactly reinvent the wheel. On the whole, it's very simple. Enemy destruction makes up a large chunk of the player's score from mission to mission. Multipliers will also build up to 20 times with subsequent enemy kills. Score bonuses for killing multiple enemies at a time also exist. But there's also a little more to it. If enemies are dealt with by way of a hacked drone, players will get a score in green rather than white. This score is not only affected by multipliers, but is also double the base value, making for a large amount of pointage if used consistently. This multiplier will flash, then reset if too much time goes by, or if the player gets hit. At the end of each mission, a number of bonuses are also added to the player's score that vary according to the player's highest kill streak, amount of loot collected, and time taken. The player is then not only instantly ranked on the worldwide leaderboards, but also against their friends who have also played the game. These dual instant rankings make RIVE a game that is very replayable and competitive, especially among friends and rivals. With the aforementioned speedrun and one-credit modes, the scoring is just another great layer that makes RIVE one of the biggest standout titles on the Switch, and among modern run-and-gun shooting games in general. This manner of score attack is present in every single aspect of the game, including RIVE's extra modes, and leaderboards exist for every single one. There's definitely a mode for everyone to compete, and at the very least, any player of any skill should be able to stack themselves up against their friends. So, what about RIVE's presentation? Well, you've all seen what RIVE is all about in terms of visuals this entire time. I don't think we really need to mince words here. RIVE looks pretty stunning, with smooth 2D sprites and backgrounds along with excellent atmospherics. The lighting effects are just incredible, and with everything moving at a solid 60 frames per second, we can confidently say that it takes the cake as the Switch's best looking shooting game to date. It's not just the abundance of sprites, crazy explosions, bloom, and ambience either. The retro PC interface and the UI work very well, and there's not a lot in terms of HUD clutter, keeping everything nice and visible. The character and mechanical design work extremely well too. Everything from the awesome mechanical set pieces in the background to Daryl's monocular expressions to Roughshot's toothbrush. It all has the kind of often minute detail that modern shooting games really, all told, shouldn't be without. The visuals here are a big part of RIVE's personality, but its sound is what really puts it over the top. The explosions are impactful, the debris and clatter is satisfying, and all of the alerts and enemy sounds work extremely well. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better sounding shooting game than RIVE on the Switch, no question. But it goes so far beyond the effects. Roughshot's commentary is often hilarious and gives way to quite the nerd under the doofy, hardened facade.
Wow, that went well. Glad I got that side-scrolling game view installed. Makes killing enemies behind me super easy. How do the first-person guys even do it?
The AI helper bot Daryl, otherwise known as DLL, also has some great lines throughout the game with a slightly corrupted voice that lends believability that he's been decaying in a wrecked ship for decades.
I have to get back inside.
And, oh man, the music is just freaking unreal. It's truly rare to find a soundtrack that just fucking nails it like RIVE does. The OST is just so damn good. Even RIVE's story is one worth paying attention to. The writing is expert, witty, funny, and filled with all kinds of references to a wide range of games and nerd culture. Throughout the game itself, a number of great references and in-jokes are sprinkled liberally throughout. No genre is safe. The Switch also has unique features that enhances its presentation. HD rumble support works surprisingly well. Everything from large hard explosions to the subtle typing of Roughshot's keyboard can be felt. A series of over 48 achievements, with new ones added especially for the Nintendo Switch's co-pilot mode, are also present for completionists and, masochists to chew on. Rounding out the presentation are a number of options such as screen shake, sound levels, and 7 language options. Nice touch. So, how does RIVE stack up? Let's take a look. RIVE has the kind of unique control that only happens ever so rarely. It's superb. RIVE offers players a number of different modes and difficulties for every playstyle and experience level. RIVE's main campaign is lengthy, played over a total of 13 missions, but the vast amount of extra content really puts it over the top. RIVE has an excellent sense of visual style and an atmosphere that is truly second to none when it comes to shooting games in general. Just as with its visuals, RIVE's audio is as good as it comes, with excellent music and top-notch effects. And if we're talking ingenuity, RIVE is almost in every game. There's puzzle elements, platforming, shooting, adventure, even a touch of racing, all blended into a game that somehow ends up being better than the sum of its parts. An ingenious control scheme and great extras make RIVE shine. At about $15 RIVE is so jam-packed with excellence, there's just no reason for any Switch owner not to have this game. We were told that RIVE was pretty good by our audience, but there's no way we could have anticipated exactly how good it was without playing it. Hopefully this review drives the point home. RIVE is essential software for the Switch, offering exceptional value and quality for play at home or on the go. RIVE Ultimate Edition gets a 5 out of 5. You can get RIVE Ultimate Edition on the Nintendo eShop for about $15. Man, that is one awesome game. This is definitely going to be a hard one to top. What comes next on Shmuppy Switchmas? Stay tuned for episode 193 coming soon. If you'd like to support Bullet Heaven, consider becoming a patron on Patreon for as little as $1 an episode. We're beefing up our PC Engine library in a mission to cover every PC Engine shmup ever produced, including some neat hidden ones. As always, all proceeds go right back into production.